The Crunchyroll Anime Awards is infamous for being biased, bad, and genuinely clowned upon by the anime community, and in the year 2025, all of what I just said is still happening. However, I think that one thing that needs to be tacked onto that list is corpo shilling, and there is no better way to really dive into this topic than to really just discuss soul leveling here. And I want to make a brief disclaimer before I go any further. I genuinely like soul leveling. I like Season 1, I like Season 2, and if you go back and look at my reviews of the series, I love it. It was fun to watch, it was fun to talk about, it was like junk food. It was fun. However, would I deem it anime of the year? Would I deem it, with all these different awards, best new series, best action, best main character, best VA, best ending song, best OST? No, I would not. There's a few categories I might say it might be deemed okay for, but there is something that does need to be mentioned, and that is the fact that the soul leveling in question that everybody was voting on for these awards was not Season 2. It was Season 1. These awards factored in everything from 2024, aka stuff that was running in the fall season of 2023, to the end of 2024, or technically up until the fall season of 2024. So, Soul Leveling Season 2 was never a factor in these votings. Like, for instance, when Crunchyroll put Soul Leveling on this list, it wasn't Season 2. It was Season 1 that they were factoring in. And I feel like a lot of people that voted in these awards, the fans, they voted because of Season 2 and not because of Season 1, especially when these awards started happening, when you could start voting for them. You were able to start voting when everybody was thinking about Soul Leveling Season 2. It was fresh off the press, everybody was talking about it, it was, the talk of the town, so to speak. So when you factor all of that in, it's very clear just the overall bias, the recency bias on display, and why Soul Leveling took home so many awards. However, I would be kind of admitting something if I didn't mention this, and that is the fact that Crunchyroll went on record a few years back to say when it comes to the voting process for all the stuff that is in the awards ceremony, 70% of the vote is from the judges and 30% is from the fans. However, there was some information that came out in the last day that there was the highest voter turnout for the Crunchyroll Awards that they've ever seen. I believe they said over 50 million votes. That's ridiculous. It legitimately is. However, I still want to point out the number association, that the judges make up 70% of the vote, while the actual fans make up 30%. Now, the fans might be able to tip the tides a little bit, but overall, it's mainly the judges that decide who wins or not. And I want to point out something, that this entire awards ceremony is incredibly biased in corpo shilling, and let's explain. For one, Soul Leveling as a series, I do think deserves some praises. I think that it was an incredible feat for what it was, even Season 1. However, I do think that in general, the reason why it is here is a mix of a variety of things, and that is the fact that, for one, Crunchyroll is a co-producer of the project. For those that don't know, Crunchyroll literally worked with Aniplex to make Soul Leveling. They were heavily involved in the creation of it. And if you did not know, Aniplex and Crunchyroll are both owned by Sony. So you factor in both companies owned by one solid company, and they've gained a monopoly in the anime industry. It's like they're patting themselves on the back for, oh, job well done. So in terms of corpo stuff, it makes a lot of sense why they would want Solo Leveling to win in the end, especially with just how successful it has actually been on their platform. Now, the numbers are there. It makes sense in terms of popularity why Solo Leveling won. But I think one big factor into this is definitely people that have Crunchyroll's best intentions in mind. And let's explain. So if we go by the information we already know when it comes to the voting, for instance, 70% of the judge vote matters more, we can assume that all the judges are definitely paid by Crunchyroll to some degree, because this award ceremony is hosted by Crunchyroll, which means that the judges that are there are probably being paid for their time by Crunchyroll, and so they're effectively more or less definitely going to vote in Crunchyroll's best interest. They would never vote for a series that theoretically would not be good for their brand, or a series that wouldn't benefit them more than the other, and this makes me want to bring attention to this. I talked about this in the past, but Crunchyroll, they hindered and sabotaged Dandadan's marketing because they didn't win the licensing war, and they had to share the licensing with people like Netflix, and they couldn't have the sole licensing rights to it. And what's shocking is a lot of people were completely unaware that Crunchyroll actually had Dandadan on their site, and a lot of people watch on Netflix, and the reason for that is because Crunchyroll straight up sabotaged the marketing. because they didn't get the sole rights. And so when you look at the awards ceremony and just like how certain series were snubbed, it all starts to make a lot of sense, especially when you not just look at Dandadan, but you also look at Bleach. Bleach is it's a Hulu exclusive. It's like on Disney and stuff. And so it's not a Crunchyroll series. And so the fact that you don't see Bleach winning any of these categories, I also think is a pretty big indicator just on how biased and corpo these awards actually are. And I also want to point out another little detail here. I think that in general, what this also showcases, this Best Original Anime, shows that the judges on the panel do not watch a lot of anime. And let's explain. I'm about to rip some holes in this one. Anyone that is an anime watcher, an anime content creator that actually did watch Ninja Calmly, knows how bad it is. The first and second episode, pretty good. Yeah, I would say pretty freaking good. However, if you're actually someone that continued watching it, you will know just how astronomically bad it actually is. I'm going to bring up the clip. This is literally from episode 13 of Ninja Calmly, and what was a solid 2D action series turned into basically CGI robots with very bland CGI backgrounds. It legit just looks freaking ugly, and I don't know how you can do robots fighting bad. Like, it's super easy, it can be easily, like, cool for people, but they did it bad. Ninja Calmly became absolutely ugly, grotesque, and just not good in story-wise. Anything that was garnering people's interest in the early episodes was thrown out the window as it continued onward. And the fact that it won the Best Original Anime and beat Girls Band Cry, Buchigiri, and Jellyfish is absolutely astounding to me. And I think this legitimately just shows the categories that aren't, let's say, they don't matter necessarily to Crunchyroll's brand. The judges don't really care to probably watch the series. They only go by what was the most recognizable or the most popular in that bracket. And in this case, it's very clear that if you look at all these series, Ninja Calmly would be the most noticeable because everybody, I think, at least heard about that over anything else on this list. However, anyone that has watched a lot of anime would know that it definitely is probably one of the worst there on this bracket. So it really shows that how biased these awards are, and just how, once again, it's very corpo. I legitimately am just upset to see this, because it really showcases just how much the anime community has changed in the last 5 to 6 years, not even counting over a decade, but it explains why there's so many problems, why there's so many issues that arise now, why people have so many issues with certain things in fiction and stuff, because the vast majority of anime watchers now only watch the things that are deemed mainstream and safe by the widespread community. And so this is why there's a lot of pushback in the anime community in the last few years, is because there's a lot more people exposed to anime, but they're the same individuals that used to bully people for watching Dragon Ball or other anime. It's just now they will only watch things that are deemed society acceptable. For instance, things that are mainstream now, like Soul Leveling or Demon Slayer, they'll watch that stuff, but anything that ventures outside that norm, they will bully you and call you weird, etc. It just explains why the anime community has deteriorated to such a degree. But, anyways, one thing I will say is that overall, these awards is just outright, it's corpo. It's just turned into nothing but corpo shilling, to the Ninja Calmly stuff with Best Original Anime, to Best Continuing Anime, just basically showcasing a complete snubbing of, like, Bleach that's on different platforms, to just, like, overall showing that judges don't actually watch a lot of these series, and they probably only watch an episode at minimum. It's like there's no quality control, there is literally nothing here that really showcases actual passion for the anime community. It just shows, like, what was something that will get us more numbers and more recognition, and that is why we have these type of results. I'm not necessarily shocked that Soul Leveling won, I'm just more or less shocked that it was just Season 1 that got its victory, which means that when the next awards comes around for next year, Soul Leveling Season 2 is going to sweep. It will. I mean, you gotta factor in that a lot of people legitimately voted for Soul Leveling probably in this awards, the judges and the fans, because of Season 2. And so when they're able to vote for it again in the next year, they're going to vote for Season 2. The only way it will, in any shape or form, actually be defeated is if there is something even more mainstream that comes out that blows everybody's expectations out of the water. That's what I will say. So be ready to see more Soul Leveling victories in the next anime awards. Take that as you will. However, if there is one shocker about this, is just how snubbed Frieren got as well. Especially when anyone that's in the anime spaces knows just how popular it got. It's one of those series that will hold the test of time and be talked about probably 10 years from now or even longer, because of just how thought-provoking and philosophical it actually is. And I feel like when you compare that to something like Solo Leveling is one of those series in 5 to 6 years from now, it's going to be forgotten. People are going to think back, oh, that was that cool action show, and that's about it. But Free Run is one of those series that will be dived into and analyzed and only get better with time, the passage of time. So it's crazy just to see a series like that lose with just how popular it was. But once again, this just goes into how mainstream anime has become. And if it's something that has flashy animation and beautiful, it's going to win over anything, even if it has a thought-provoking story that's 10 out of 10 writing. That's just how it be. But I love you guys. Be safe. Stay healthy. Chibi out.